Modern people assume underwear has always existed. It seems so basic that it's hard to imagine life without it. But for more than 99% of human history, that idea didn't even make sense.
Long before cities, kingdoms, or written language, prehistoric women lived in a world where clothing served one purpose above all else: survival. And in that world, underwear as we know it almost certainly didn't exist.
Imagine waking up 30,000 years ago. There are no closets, no cotton, no sewing machines, and no fashion industry. Everything you wear has to be made by hand from whatever your environment provides: animal hides, furs, grasses, tree bark, and eventually simple woven fibers are your only options. Every piece of clothing takes days, sometimes weeks to make. Nothing is wasted.
Because prehistoric people left no written records, archaeologists have to reconstruct their lives from the objects they left behind. Clothing almost never survives because leather, fur, and plant fibers decompose over thousands of years. But stone tools used for scraping hides, bone needles dating back more than 40,000 years, and microscopic wear patterns on ancient tools all suggest that prehistoric humans became remarkably skilled at making fitted clothing.
The question is whether those clothes included underwear. Most researchers believe the answer is probably no, at least in the modern sense. Prehistoric clothing was usually built in layers only when the environment demanded it. In cold regions during the Ice Age, women likely wore soft animal skins directly against their bodies, covered by thicker outer garments for warmth. Adding a separate undergarment would have required extra materials, extra labor, and offered little practical benefit.
In warmer climates, the opposite was often true. Wearing fewer layers helped the body stay cool, while reducing the effort needed to produce clothing. Survival depended on efficiency, not on following ideas of fashion or modesty that would emerge thousands of years later.
This doesn't mean prehistoric people ignored comfort. In fact, evidence suggests they carefully selected different animal hides depending on their purpose. Softer skins may have been chosen for garments worn closest to the body, while thicker hides protected against rain, wind, and freezing temperatures. Their clothing was practical, carefully designed, and adapted to the world around them.
What's fascinating is that our modern definition of underwear is shaped by the clothes we wear today. Tight trousers, stitched dresses, synthetic fabrics, and changing ideas about hygiene all encourage separate undergarments. Prehistoric people lived under completely different conditions. Their clothing solved different problems because their lives demanded different solutions.
Even famous prehistoric figurines, cave art, and archaeological discoveries reveal surprisingly little evidence for dedicated underwear. Instead, they show simple garments, belts, cloaks, wraps, and fitted hides. Every design reflects the same priority: staying alive in an unpredictable world.
So, did prehistoric women wear underwear? The most honest answer is that they probably didn't, at least in the way we understand it today. Their clothing wasn't divided into outerwear and underwear. It was simply clothing, made by hand, repaired repeatedly, and crafted to protect them from cold, injury, and the environment.
Sometimes we imagine prehistoric people as primitive versions of ourselves, but they weren't. They were expert survivors whose clothing evolved over tens of thousands of years through experience rather than fashion. And perhaps that's the biggest surprise of all.
The history of underwear begins with no fabric. It begins with a much older question: how do you survive another day? For prehistoric women, that answer mattered far more than what they wore underneath.